talk about theory and the current state of the industry. So really, my advice is more practical based, you know, a little bit about what we've done as a company to reinvent ourselves. And we are basically some old dogs, but no, there's also some, in the nicest possible way, also some old dogs in the audience. And there are lots of new tricks that we can actually learn. A little bit about Eutechnyx, for those people who don't know the company. We're one of the UK's largest independent developers. We're based in Gateshead, which is obviously on the other side of the water to Newcastle. Got 2 studios in China, one in Hong Kong, one in Chengdu, and also 2 biz dev operations, one in Pittsburgh and one in Charlotte in North Carolina. So basically, the tricks aren't really specifically aimed at just console developers, you know. I think we'll start off with a little bit of console stuff, a little bit about what's going on in the industry. I'll try and not cover what people have already done in the past, but really talk more about the people. There's a lot being talked about today about the technology, but at the end of the day, this is a people industry. So let's start with the bad news. I think basically the message is coming over really loud and strong that what we consider for at least the last, I think since the PlayStation 1 industry, is fundamentally changing. And I think this is something we've been talking about at GameHorizon Conference for about the last 3 years. But I think people are waking up now and smelling the coffee. I think for the first time ever, just by the number of people that have been talking here about new business models and really the interest level and around new business models, I think we are beginning to wake up and smell the coffee. But the really great news is we're all heading towards, I believe, a bigger and brighter future. It definitely feels like it's been 20 years to get to this point. I think the opportunities with digital distribution, you know, is going to allow you to take a greater share of your creative skills. So how do I think we're going to get there? Jesse Schell told me a really interesting story about Thomas Edison. He says there's a better way to do it, or there's a way to do it better, which is a similar thing. You've got to go out there and find it. And that's really the dilemma that we're currently faced with. You know, what are we going to do? How are we going to find this better way? Poor old Thomas Edison obviously invented the phonograph, but towards the end of his life, he actually went deaf. And he used to get people to come in. This is Jesse's story, so if there's any issues with it, that's where it came from. And he used to get people to play the piano, and because he couldn't hear, he used to bite the piano lid. Because by biting the piano lid, he could actually hear what was going on. So basically, I think there's 2 parts to my talk. First version is, you know, what consists of the better way, and that's been covered quite a lot. But really, how are you going to maximize the opportunities that exist within your own company? And Forever the Salesman, misspelled chili dog, we've got a special offer on today. So I know you came only expecting 6 new tricks, but it's 3 for 2. And I think we're going to do basically 9 new tricks. So the first thing I think you've got to do is practical advice. Come up with a plan, come up with a vision. You know, how are you going to handle all of these opportunities that are coming your way? You know, you need to talk to your key employees. You know, a lot of these people, I mean, we're old dogs. A lot of these people are actually much more into the social networks than we are. You need to talk to them. You need to understand what they're talking about. And then, really, you need to define your vision. You know, how are you going to take advantage of these opportunities? Is it going to be PSN? Is it going to be Xbox Live? Is it going to be casual games? Is it going to be MMOs? There's all these, you know, what is your area that you're going to get involved in? You know, how are you going to fund it? That's a really, really interesting question going forward. But at the end of it, by the time you've gone through this process, just the same as Michael yesterday did with Moshi Monsters, you'll have a plan. It'll be your plan. And it'll be a bold statement about where you want to take your company, you know, what exactly is going to happen and how fast is it going to happen, how fast can you do it. It'll contain your core values that define you as a business, you know, what's special about your business. And also, what performance expectations you've got, you know. People are going to have to change. You need new skill sets in, different styles of people. What level of performance do you need to get from those people to get where you want to go? So let's presume you've come up with your plan. What do you do next? I think the most important thing, a lot of people forget about this, is to talk to your own people. You know, it's just a random opportunity, you should go and speak to any member of staff and say, why are you doing what you're doing? And can they give you an answer as to why they're doing what they're doing? You know, when we came up, I think there's been a lot in the press recently, or a little bit in the press recently, about Auto Club Revolution, the money that we've raised to do that free-to-play game. And that was really the result of a 3-year plan that we first told our staff about 3 years ago. And I think if you talk to most of the people at Eutechnyx and said, hey, why we're doing Auto Club Revolution, what's it all about? Luckily, I think 99% they'll be able to say, hey, it's because we want to get in free play and we can take a bigger share of the upside, etc., etc. And Auto Club Revolution is the free-to-play game that we're actually doing. And it makes the difference between, in terms of your members of staff, they're either filling sandbags or they're saving New Orleans from flood. And that's the difference, you know, if you communicate your plan. So basically, you've communicated it, what you're going to do next. You know, as Napoleon says, no battle plan survives the first contact with the enemy. And basically what that means is that what you start out with at your plan will change really, really quickly. That's what happened to us. We came up with an idea that we thought we had. We were going to find a partner. We found a partner. It was all wine and roses. It was a fantastic deal. But then, unfortunately, the partner that we had originally ran out of money. So what you really got to do is keep on going under those scenarios. Don't give up, you know. Be prepared to amend your plan and change it on a regular basis. So basically, going back to Auto Club Revolution, that my younger brother was so keen to point out, you know, where do I think the biggest opportunity lies currently? Well, really, I'm really excited about embracing digital distribution in all of its forms, you know, PSN, XBLA, PC Online, all this stuff. But I think the most interesting area is free-to-play. And free-to-play is an area that's due to double in size from its current 3.5 billion to about 7 billion by 2015. And I think the real reason I think that is because I spend a lot of time in Asia. And you actually go out, and in terms of this business model, the Asians are quite some way ahead of us. And it's really how we came up with the idea for Auto Club was by actually going out and looking at games like Kart Rider and how they were monetizing that. So I think that the biggest opportunity, say if you're a console developer, is to actually bring console quality to the free-to-play market. And I don't think this is an instant recipe for success, you know. I'm not talking about going out and producing a Facebook game and expecting to retire within 5 minutes. You need to be a bit smarter than that, you know. We really need to think about the current games are very, very me too. It reminds me a lot of in the 1980s when we first started, in the late 1980s, Codemasters had produced BMX Simulator. 3 weeks later, we would have BMX simulations. And that's currently the way the market is. So you don't need to think about what's going on now, Farmville, Farmtown, all the variations. It's really what's going to be the future of it. But you also don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. So currently we're still doing console deals and this sort of thing. You know, as I say, each plan needs to be amended. We don't want to put the whole company, 150 people's jobs in jeopardy just to pursue this market. It needs to be a measured approach. But really, you're going to have to do something that you haven't done for a long time. And I think this is the fundamental difference. It's getting to know your customers. I think as console developers, we've gradually become further and further and further away from the people who actually buy our games. And I think we've got this sort of perceived idea, you know, that this is the, I don't know how well you can see it there, but this is the idea of how we perceive our consumers, you know, the connected Wi-Fi, PS3, XBLA, everything like this connected, iPad, iPhone. In actual fact, the reality is a bit more like this. Their home is just like your home. So these are the people who are actually buying your games. But what's really amazing about them is they're tremendously enthusiastic about your game. Recently we were a bit terrified. We thought, well, what we'll do is we'll look through and we'll invite the people who got the fastest lap times on one of our games to our offices to see how they did it. Because they're getting faster lap times than our guys internally. And we were all a bit scared, what they're going to be like when I'm the wreck the place, what they'll go crazy. And in actual fact, they're a great bunch of really, really enthusiastic people. So what you really need to do is to start and work out some way to be able to communicate with this group of people. Whether it's forums, your websites, emails, press releases, Twitter, Facebook, etc. It's really, really been done to death. But what you need to do is really talk to your community, because they've got a passion for your products. A great example of that is there was one guy on Ferrari Challenge who was absolutely brilliant at producing vinyls. Much, much better, to be honest, than the vinyls that we were getting done internally. So we actually got that guy to do all the vinyl systems for Absolute Supercars, this follow-on game. And it's okay to start with nothing. Eutechnyx, I think average unit sales 800,000. We've got a few titles that are in the millions. But it's okay. When we actually looked at our own database, we didn't have anything like 800,000 people that we're currently talking to. So it's really just a case of getting out there and trying to get them to take notice of what you're doing and feedback on what you're doing. What's really interesting is that Big Point have actually got 1,000 people who actually monitor their game, so act as game controllers for free. So they realised that obviously, I think Big Point's got something like 110 million actually active users or registered users, but they actually got members of the community who are enthusiastic to actually go out and police the community. So let's say you start to talk to them, you're building up a bit of momentum. What do I think you need to do next? Now, the first thing I think you need to say is Eutechnyx does not have relationships with all of these IP holders, nor are we making any representations that we have. But I think, and it's brands and brand identity are really one of the things that is going to be the major differentiating factor in free-to-play. People like brands. People like to be associated with brands. You're either a BMW person, you're an Audi person, you're either a Calvin Klein jeans or you're a Levi jeans, etc., etc. And I think what's interesting about these guys or girls is they're suddenly very interested in you. The traditional markets of actually talking to people via TV advertising, that sort of thing, is basically wearing thin. The BBC have recently announced that from their research, more kids are spending time on PCs than actually on watching TV. Now, I'm not talking about some hideous tie-in of a McDonald's game. I'm really talking, once again, about being smart, how you actually relate to these individuals. And for the first time ever, you're able to do fantastic deals with them. Deals that years ago, when publishers were there with their big checkbooks, you just couldn't do that style of deal. Today, you can do the style of deal. In the last 3 years, we've signed up over 100 licenses into Eutechnyx, and that's before we actually got the VC finance that we've recently attracted. So it's really worth going out, talking to these people. It's going to be really something interesting. So why is all this relevant? I think really, if you look at the MPD data, this is sales in America, the publishers generally are getting very, very risk averse. All of these games are sequels with the exception of one. I would class one of them as original IP, which is Just Dance, but as somebody pointed out to me, that's full of music licenses. And I think that currently the console market is very, very risk averse. People are spending a lot of money on these games, as Peter Molyneux said this morning, but he needs to sell, I think he said 5 million of them. These are really, really big bets.